from the strategic plan that was drawn up last year. And it also draws from the review of the 2019 general elections. It draws from the conduct of the elections, last year, particularly the Edo and Ondo governorship elections and several by-elections, that were conducted. And it also draws from the recommendations of the review of the 2019 general elections. And it also looked at the challenges, that were faced in the conduct of the 2019 general elections, and the challenges also and threats that were confronted in the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. Now, you recall that in 2019, because INEC didn't get funding in good time, its budget was not appropriated in time, it affected its logistics. And we had so many parties on the ballot to the extent that printing the ballots and other sensitive materials was a logistics nightmare. And so, in addition to that, we also had other threats like COVID-19, under which we conducted the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And we have seen also heightened insecurity in the country. These are threats to the conduct of the elections. And we also have other threats in terms of attacks in the conduct of 2019 general elections and other elections to the INEC website, databases, servers. And then we've also had this trend of fake news, misinformation, vote buying and trading. And this became particularly rampant during the conduct of the FCT governorship election, council elections, to the extent that Yaga Africa and CDD, reported through its observers that it was not only rampant, it was done openly. So these challenges are addressed by the project plan. And the project plan, drawing from all this, is an articulation of the roles and activities to be, carried out by INEC and other stakeholders to deliver, elections that are seamless in 2023. And the idea is, to identify certain levels of activities. And the project plan has identified 231 of such high-level, activities to be conducted, during this period. And, as said earlier on, that it also draws from the implementation program. And if you look at the implementation program, you will see that certain activities were articulated across the 3 electoral cycles. And at each quarter of each of the cycles, activities are identified, the persons who are to carry them out are identified, and so on and so forth. So the project plan provides us with that template as to how we are going to conduct the elections on the part of INEC and also stakeholders. And it also emphasizes the need for INEC not only to be transparent, to be cost-effective, to be professional, and to carry stakeholders as much as possible. I've said here several times that anytime we work in Nigeria with concert, with determination, with synergy, we excel. And elections are so serious matters that cannot be left for INEC alone. The INEC has long realized this, and since, if you look at the strategic plans, I think this is the 5th one. I started with the 2003 to 2007 electoral cycle under the watch of Dr. Abel Gubadia. And these plans, they are cognizant of the fact that elections are such huge and massive projects that you cannot conduct, or carry out haphazardly in a random or serendipitous manner. It must be planned and in a sustained manner with people given roles to play. And you also notice that these plans, these strategic plans that INEC has put in place have coincided with certain things, one of which is the introduction of technology to the electoral process, which began also.
Right. Yeah, Nick, we're going to have to pause you. You've given us and our viewers background to the election project plan. It's incisive, but of course there are a number of matters arising, even from what you have said, as well as the details that have been provided. Let's bring in now NLB, Country Director of Action Aid. What's your take on this election project plan for 2023? Deja vu, or we are having a blueprint that could deliver free, fair, and credible elections?
First, we want to say that it is good to plan. It's a great thing to plan. But carrying out to implementation, I think that's the reality that is on ground. I'm happy that INEC, we congratulated them, and I want to say a big thank you to the media. Thank you to NTA. Thank you to all members, all the journalists that have been doing fantastic work in following up, because it's not only stopping there, and you are tracking it now. That's what you have started doing, and we hope to continue to track. I think the issue of transparency and accountability, being open in terms of communication, is helping a great deal. It's helped us, from the last year. I can see there was a bombardment of several meetings with stakeholders, in terms of what is your plan? What are you going to do about what is on ground? And I think this is part of it. At that launch, it's okay to have the strategic plan. There was a strategic plan from 2017 to 2021. And when I look at the recommendations, because one of the good things that they also did with the plan is to review the past plans, to see what are the confusions, what are the challenges, and then going to the plan towards, that's the strategic plan, and then towards 2023 elections. When you look at them, you might have very similar recommendations. There were about, 12 recommendations or so, from the earlier plan, which ended in 2021. And when you look at the recommendations, it seems to be dovetailing in a lot of ways into the 2022-2026 strategic plan, which they have brought out the implementation, this election plan, monitoring plan from. Now that we're here, the implementation, if you remember in the struggle for the Electoral Act, there was a lot of struggle. Sign the Electoral Act. If you see also at the civil society environment, I'm the convener of Civil Society Situation Room on elections. And so these are basic things that we look at. These are things that we are following up on. And we were worried because it was getting too late again. And we said, if the president did not sign, first, I commend the president for eventually signing, though that was the 7th time. But I commend him for signing it because, again, there were so many things. There was a lot of politicking, thanks to the National Assembly, too. There was a lot of in-work there. And we could see, I can see a bit of sabotage in the sense that some people didn't want it signed, other people wanted it signed, and so many things were being thrown in. Each time the bill went back and forth and all. But eventually it was signed. And I say kudos, congratulations to Nigerians. The implementation is what we are watching now. We look at one of the recommendations from the past plan was the issue of, the procurement, Public Procurement Act. That is a lot of, hurdle for INEC in terms of, planning and the pursuit of plans. Because what Nick raised earlier about, the production of the materials going into the elections, there will be delays again. Those things were some of the challenges that were raised by the plan. One thing that I like with the plan is that it did the review of the past and is telling you we are going forward now. What is it that we can put in place? When we said the delay of the signing of the bill, delayed it for 1 week, we went out en masse. And eventually that 1 week delay led to the 1 week postponement, a shift in the elections, meaning that if we didn't get it then, it would have been so much more. And the same thing is happening all over. Have they given them the funding? Implementation attracts funding. Have they released the funding for the year? Or will that lead to some other issues?
Yeah, these are issues we'll keep talking to as we continue the conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you so much, NOB, for that opening slot. Let's hear from Yaba Gisani, National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, and National Chairman of Action Democratic Party. As a politician, how would you differentiate, if I may use this word, differentiate 2019, election project plan and 2023 election project plan?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate INEC and, of course, congratulate Nigerians that we're lucky to have the team that we have, managing the affairs of the elections in this country today, headed by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, a very fine gentleman, committed, focused, organized, and I think that shows that 2023 is going to be remarkably different in terms of successes from 2019, even though 2019 was also conducted under his watch. But the point I'm trying to make now is that they have the benefit of the experience of 2019, which has been dovetailed into 2023 plan. And I believe, like the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And INEC has adequately, given enough time, energy to ensure that they plan well so that we'll succeed, end of the day. The issues, this country will either make it, for God forbid, or, we might, but I'm sure we're going to make it. So 2023 election project plan, it's a good piece of document. It's, of course, if you look at the grand norm, which is the constitution of this country, it has given INEC, that responsibility, the mandate to organize, implement, plans. You look at the section 15, part 1 of the test schedule of 1999 Constitution, and also the section 2 of the just signed electoral 22 electoral law. It gives INEC that responsibility. So they entirely are the ones responsible for the success of the elections that we are going to have in this country. Our worries in IPAC is the fact that this is a new electoral bill, electoral law, that we are going to implement. And we believe that, unlike INEC, in the past, when they are coming out with such an important, document, plan, they always carry us along, before the final document is prepared. But in this case, I don't know what happened. Political parties were not taken into confidence, were not, consulted on the plan itself, how it's going to be implemented, especially as it regards the timing, the time frame, because time is very, very crucial. And when you are planning for elections, you must bear in mind, which INEC knows, and that's why they have been taking us, into confidence in the past, like I said. You are planning it for the political parties because we are the one that really the Constitution has given that power to present candidates, to in fact conduct, the elections are conducted for political parties. So, but I know this INEC, I know that there'll be room for us to engage further to maybe present our views because there are serious areas of concern, as far as political parties are concerned. For instance, the issue of when the primaries are going to start and when they're going to end. We know that the Constitution allows, us 180 days before the elections, to conclude all, activities leading to that election. But in this, time frame that the schedule that INEC has brought out, is, they have given about 10 months, and we believe that given the fact that the dynamics and then the goings on in the polity and the fact that we need to give time for political parties who themselves are just coming into this new electoral law, perhaps make mistakes and correct them before the elections itself. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a need for the political parties through IPAC and INEC to sit down again and take a look at the timing. The plan is fantastic, believe me. They invested so much time and energy and to articulate that plan. And we welcome the plan. We are for it. We are on the same page with them. But we are talking about implementation. That's the timelines for the implementation,
Okay,
especially primaries before the election itself.
Okay, yeah, Wagi, let me just cut in here a little bit and then let's exhaust some of these concerns you're talking about. You only mentioned one, talking about the primaries and the time for the primaries. What other concerns are there for the political parties as far as the EPP is concerned?
Well, you see, the other concern is actually not within the purview of INEC. That is the big elephant in the room, which is the judiciary. What his plan was. If at the end of the day somebody will go to court and then make a nonsense of all these things that we have done, like we have seen in the past, to the extent that some governors are today called Supreme Court governors. So I think we should have the judiciary to come, really to step up to the plate and ensure that when these things are done, at the end of the day, somebody somewhere does not go to procure judgment that will make a nonsense of everything that we are doing in order to ensure that this country gets its bearing in terms of becoming the leader which God has given us position, to be. So judiciary, the kind of laws, the kind of judgments that have been given in the past does not in any way give one the confidence that all these good things that we have done, all the energy, all the resources, all the time we have spent, care is not taken, end of the day, it will come to naught. So this is another area that I want, and like I said, it's not within the purview of INEC and the security agencies also, because we don't want a situation where they be compromised in the process of getting implementation process itself. That's what NA was talking about. It's not the planning, in itself alone. But there are other issues, there are other key stakeholders, that must also step up to the plate and ensure that they imbibe that, nationalist, orientation and belief that to believe in this country, to believe that they owe it to this country to be above board. These are very important factors. INEC cannot do much about that, but we believe that as we continue to dialogue and then as we approach 2023, some of these things will have be put in proper perspective. So there are other issues that we'll talk about as we go along.
All right. Thank you very much, Alhaji Yabagi. Let's bring in again Nick Dazan. Nick, again, help our viewers understand the cost elements in the election project plan. Our backgrounder stated that INEC says it's going to spend some 305 billion naira on the elections next year. And of that amount, about 27 billion has been set aside for possible runoff. Elections are pretty costly. But when you look at some of these cost elements, you're wondering, is this going to be part of a supplementary budget to be sent to the National Assembly? Or is it already INEC's budget from which this is being drawn? What is INEC already executing its own budget for next year's election? What is the context of these numbers at this time?
Well, the context is that, first of all, INEC spends a lot, on staff, ad hoc and permanent, during the conduct of elections. Recall that before now we had nearly 120,000 polling units. And on election day, you have not less than 4 ad hoc staff manning each of these polling units. Then you also have at least 2 security men or policemen manning each of these polling units. Now, with the expansion of voter access to polling units, that is when more polling units were created, to decongest the former polling units, we now have a larger number of polling units. And that means that you will now have more staff, ad hoc, permanent security to pay. And, you have to you pay them allowances for their transportation, for their feeding, and so on. And by the same token, you also pay the security agents. That is number one. And if you look at the number we are talking about ad hoc staff in millions, and also the security, the policemen alone that are going to man the polling units are also 500,000. So when you look at, when we conduct elections, we are dealing with like almost 2 million people, conducting the elections, and you have to pay them. That's number one. Number two, you have to print the sensitive materials and the non-sensitive materials. And because we have issue of trust, in other jurisdictions, in Europe, you just use plain paper and indicate your party of choice or candidate of choice, and you slot it into the box. But here there are issues of concern to the extent that these sensitive materials are printed at the level of the currency, the naira that you know. You have to put security features, you have to put watermarks, and then, you now print them abroad. You have to also transport them back and then distribute them. And then, even in the course of distribution, the logistics involved is some other thing. So all these are costs. And then don't forget that most of these things are dollarized. The printing of the sensitive materials are done in hard currency. And the naira continues to plummet precipitously against the dollar. In 2015, the naira was exchanging at less than 200, and now it is exchanging at 400 plus, at the current exchange rate. So that adds to the cost. So going forward, and as our elections improve and issues of trust come in, I'm sure the cost of elections will go down. Secondly, I've been an advocate of the fact that we have a national security printing and minting company in Nigeria. Instead of outsourcing the printing of materials, to other printing presses abroad and empowering those people there, all we need to do is to put the security printing and minting company in the finest fettle, give it the state-of-the-art equipment that can produce these materials. And by the time you do that, the cost will go down because you are paying in naira, not in dollars. Secondly, you will be empowering the security printing and minting company. You will also be, facilitating the employment of Nigerians in that company. So I believe that by and by, when we do the needful and we address some of these concerns, and our elections get better and less rancorous, and the preeminent stakeholders, the political parties, do the needful. Because you said a number of things that, I think the ball is really in the court of the political parties. Most of these cases that result in adjudication or arbitration by the courts, with due respect to him, are caused by the political parties. They foist candidates. They don't respect even their constitutions and manifestos. And because of that, at the end of the day, people go to court, and then the courts order INEC to conduct elections, and at which cost? It takes not less than 1.5 to 2 billion naira to conduct a governorship election in Nigeria. And by the time you now order 3-4 governorship elections to be conducted on the part of INEC alone, you can imagine how much is going to be expended. Not to talk of other stakeholders, like even the politicians themselves, civil society, media, all people involved in elections now have to spend the kind of money they spent earlier on, to observe the conduct of the elections. So the political parties need to do the needful. And I'm surprised that he is saying that, is also suggesting that INEC does not engage with them, particularly in respect of this project, because I was part of it. I was part of the strategic plan 2022 to 2026 was designed when I was there. I was a member of that committee, incidentally, and I was also a member of the committee that drafted the project plan. And we tried as much as possible, to engage with all stakeholders to make sure that we collected their inputs. And that explains why, even during the presentation, political parties, members of civil society, the media, all stakeholders were invited to the presentation. And it has been like that, right from the beginning of time, from 2003, when we started this process of planning, we had always engaged with stakeholders, and we had consciously and deliberately increased, or rather INEC has consciously and increased its frequency of engagement, particularly with political parties. And I'm aware that after the break, the stellar break, INEC again re-engaged with the political parties and other stakeholders. And I'm sure that these issues, will arise and they will be debated, they will be discussed. But, what I'm trying to say is that there has always been this overarching concern on the part of the Commission to engage with stakeholders, because the INEC has realized that it cannot successfully conduct any election on its own. It must engage with others. It must let, with stakeholders.
Nick, thanks again for your explanation. One other aspect that is left untouched, maybe the other guests may speak to this. I was talking about the amount that INEC says is going to spend. You provided a justification by explaining how INEC spends money, which is fine. But is INEC saying that it will need 305 billion naira to conduct the election, and therefore have a supplementary budget, or we already have the amount that we are going to, that has been voted for us, of this amount, this is what we are going to spend on the conduct of elections? Because, other than elections, INEC also has other activities. So that's what I'm not quite clear about. And then you have a sense of why these numbers are the way they are. Are they presenting them now as a prelude to a supplementary bill, or I don't know, supplementary appropriation bill, or what?
I wouldn't tell directly. I think INEC will have to answer that question. But I can say that the planning has been on. And so the Act provides that the money for the running of the election be released 12 months, to the election. And as at the time that the Act was passed, I think 1 month down the line, the money had not been released. I don't know now if they have gotten. INEC did not come out to tell us that the money has been released. But we are monitoring that as well. And the government needs to take responsibility. The government of Nigeria is not only because implementation is everything. And that's why we are calling on all stakeholders. Calling on Nigerians. It's not only the key stakeholders that we're mentioning. All Nigerians that put their hands on deck. Because one of the things that it's very, very apparent now is voter apathy. Voter apathy is major in terms of those who are coming out to vote. That showed up in the 2019 elections, where we have about 84.5 million voters, and then only about 27 voted in the general election. And that means 50-something did not vote at all. And that is our major concern. What are the concerns about voter education? Have they started voter education process? They are still now going through the plans that we're talking about. But voter education ought to have started. Because the timeline for you to stop registration and transferring of your voting in order to meet up with the permanent voters card is also, we are almost a couple of months to the closure of that scenario. So if you have not registered now, with the continuous voter registration that is going on, if you have not registered, if you have not done it, in the next few months, it's going to close. And you are not starting voter education. You are not talking to Nigerians about it. And I think these are areas that we need to focus on. So the monetary aspect will allow INEC to take the plans to the market. To take them for the implementation of the plans. But if they don't have the money, can they meet up with that? Because we had crisis when, during Anambra election, it was a lot in terms of voter education. INEC could not go out because of the nature of the election then. But we are now here, And we are missing the civic education that needs to accompany, because we have a lot of Nigerians who have gone to above 18 since the last election. And so how do we mobilize them? People, issues of trust is there. They don't have confidence in the system. There's a lot of unemployment, which is addressing issues of, a lot of people feel their voters don't count. But we can say now that voting will count. If you dare to go, because the beavers is constructed to limit issues of fraud in elections. And if we are able to, except if you don't go to the voting, if you don't go to the polling unit, we also have the crisis of populating and depopulating the congested polling units to repopulate those polling units. Because in the last election, an example is the FCT election, where sometimes you have 3 people who are in one polling unit. And the beauty of the beavers is that you can't move from one polling unit to go and vote in the other, because those 3 can only vote where they are. And so the issue of having 5,000 in this polling unit and next to it you have 1 person, or 3 people in the polling unit, and you have the 4 officials really seated there. I think these are issues that we need to look at. Since other stakeholders are involved, the security is involved. It's not only INEC. Are they doing their bit? Do they have funding implications that they can also do their bit? And if we have the party, the political parties, what they are doing, I think in all of it, what we are saying with this election, we need everybody to stand up right for Nigeria.
Okay.
We need everybody to be accountable for their role, that you have a role, not only INEC, but if INEC needs to carry out its duties, they are employed to do the job. They need funding to be able to implement. For the civil society, we will monitor. But you monitor what is on ground. If you are monitoring INEC and INEC tells you, but I don't have money to execute, money has not been given to me, where do we go to? So let them be given what they need to do, and so that every department in INEC is ready for the election, and then we need to move on from there.
Okay, thank you, NLB. It's natural that one will feel that INEC by now should have gone far in trying to, actualize some of these plans, given the fact that we have some few months ahead. But nonetheless, let's take a cue from what Ena said, Alaji Abagi. Let's hear from you. Voter education is one of the concerns of Nigerians and of concerns of civil society organizations, the political parties, and the rest of them. But listening to the INEC chairman last week when he was, presenting this EPP, one could see and could hear how the concern is from him and from INEC about, general participation in the success of this election. Talking about voter education generally is not the sole responsibility of INEC. Of course, we are doing our bit, as Ines said, and of course, that's one of our major roles here. Political parties have a great role to play. Voter education is one of the concerns. What would you say about this?
Well, thank you very much, but let me quickly make a correction of impression that Nick was trying to give, that I said INEC is not consulting sufficiently with us. No, I didn't say so. At every point of the process, INEC calls us either sometimes individually, collectively, for us to share, experiences and see how best this thing can be done. The point I was trying to make is that in the final analysis, when this document was prepared finally and presented to the public, normally INEC will call us and say, this is what we are going to present. What do you think as stakeholders in this case? For instance, the chairman himself, I'm talking about Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, last week or so, announced that parties are required to submit the registers of their members, both in soft copy and hard copy, 30 days to the election, to the primaries. So today, not all parties really, I don't know which party really has its registers, ready, in hard copy and soft copy. Some parties are not even technologically enabled, in terms of producing these copies.
But that should be the business of the parties, not that of INEC.
It is.
If party managers did their job properly, why should that be an issue?
No. Registration of members, like INEC also, in their own voter registration, it's a continuous exercise. But when you now give a time limit that you must submit this, although it didn't say you must submit this number of members before you can qualify to conduct your your primaries. But the point we are making is that whatever is worth doing, it's worth doing well. We believe, given also the fact that the elections in Osun and Ekiti is coming, ending by July or so, we feel that you never know what may come out from those elections. So the timeline given by INEC that by June 5th or so, that primaries should be conducted, should be concluded, all activities is what we are saying, that perhaps we could again sit down together and look at it and see how do we ensure that these things are done properly, that people are not put in a straitjacket kind of thing, and then you make mistakes. That's all I'm trying to say. INEC has been very, very cooperative in terms of getting us to be on the same page whenever things are done like this. But this has to do with our primaries, which means if care is not taken and you make mistakes, your candidates may be exposed to some unnecessary legal issues that we may not be, because this electoral law is being tested for the first time. This is the first outing, of INEC on this new electoral law that we have. That's why we're asking that, since we have 6 months, according to the Constitution, to conclude all the processes, we can allow some room for parties to get themselves ready properly, so that we can achieve what we want to achieve. Then coming to voter education and civic responsibility of individuals. Yes, if you look at the mandate of INEC, the Constitution says INEC should embark on this exercise, including education of people on sound electoral processes and things like that. The Constitution gives that to INEC. Parties, of course, are doing their own. IPAC, in particular, we normally organize road shows and things like that before every elections. We try to see how we can sensitize Nigerians, mobilize Nigerians, so that we will achieve, participation. That is, people coming out to vote. This voter apathy thing, will be reduced. But remember also that parties are not funded by any agency, anybody except the parties themselves. So this is also, and I keep saying, I don't know of any agency created by the Constitution that is not funded by the government. And I don't know why it has become an exception in the most important, business of the, on the land, that the government will say, no, we're not going to fund you. Go and do it. And then here again, you are saying that you don't want money bags to hijack the process. You don't want to monetize the process. And you have left the parties to their own fate. So these are issues that I think we must interrogate as we go on, so that we can get it right and get it right. Even in America, electioneering processes, parties are funded, one way or the other. So it's not anything that it's not like a favor that you are doing to the political parties. So we're asking the government to take a second look, National Assembly, to see that, because if they say who pays the piper, dictates the tone. If you leave the parties to the vagaries of those who have loads of money, then you have to live with whatever the outcome is. So I agree that I commend INEC, everybody does, because it's a different scenario we are going to have in terms of the involvement of electronic systems, of managing the process, and in terms of when you look at even the mindset. I'm talking about the orientation and the demonstrated commitment of the personnel, in INEC. Believe you me, there's no way you will not have confidence to believe that end of the day the process will be a successful one.
Yeah, but I'm not cutting you short. But
Yes.
My concern, and of course concern of Nigerians here, is the issue of voter apathy. No organization, I would say, requires the votes must, like the political parties, because they are the ones that try to get people to vote for them, and then with that they count the numbers, and there they go. INEC coordinates this and then see to it that their votes count. Or only when they vote is when the votes are going to count. Now, voter education is one primary thing here. Until the apathy is gotten rid of, we cannot really be sure of the fact that we would get the votes we require as political parties. All right, that's what we are saying. And
Exactly.
how far?
I'm on the same page with you. But the point I'm trying to make is that if we understand the fact that voter education is very important, to also give the Nigerians, their civic responsibilities, rights as far as elections are concerned, then why not make some funds available to parties, particularly to engage in that exercise, since it's so important, and since it's only political parties who can reach, far and wide, deep into the every corner of this country to mobilize people. Why don't you do that? As a matter of policy, as a government that